Sí, hay preguntas. Buenas noches.
Bueno, agradecemos especialmente las palabras del doctor Nouriel Roubini y damos comienzo al espacio de preguntas. Les recordamos que las pueden entregar escritas a las asistentes de sala o también nos la pueden enviar tecnológicamente a través del hashtag Roubini en CIRS 2014. Repito, hashtag Roubini en CIRS 2014 o también se las entregan escritas a las asistentes de sala. Algunas preguntas que nos han ido llegando. Por ejemplo, ¿cree que Argentina podrá beneficiarse de un nuevo marco legal para reestructuraciones de deuda soberana en Naciones Unidas? Recordemos que Argentina está promoviendo un nuevo marco para reestructuraciones de deuda soberana en las Naciones Unidas y la pregunta es si eso podrá beneficiar, si ese nuevo marco legal podrá beneficiar al país.
I would say that that new legal framework that will provide a scheme for effectively an international bankruptcy court that has legal power of enforcing orderly restructuring on all creditors will be an improvement, while the current solution that has been proposed by the IMF that is changing the clauses in that contract is a positive development, but is not going to be benefiting Argentina because Argentina has debt with the old clauses. So the changes that are occurring right now cannot directly benefit Argentina. I think that we need a new legal regime for orderly debt restructuring, whether it's the UN one or there are other proposals on the table. I fear, however, that these proposals are not going to be adopted. There is plenty of resistance by many governments in advanced economies. There is a resistance by the financial sector, and I'm not sure whether those obstacles that are political obstacles to adopting the new regime are going to be surmounted so there is a new system for the orderly resolution of debts. I'll be in favor of having a new regime, but realistically, I do not know whether that new regime is going to be adopted or not.
La siguiente pregunta, considerando que América Latina es una zona de paz y de importantes riquezas naturales, además de un nivel de integración importante, le preguntamos al doctor Nouriel Roubini, ¿cómo ve el futuro de América Latina?
Well, I'm quite positive about Latin America because in the last 20 years in Latin America, in most places, things have gone in the right direction. First thing has happened is that now all countries in Latin America are democratic. Those authoritarian regimes and coups that used to occur 20 or 30 years ago are the past, and democratic institutions are now entrenched throughout the region, and there are the strong benefits of having true democracy. That's a positive. People can decide about their future. Secondly, Latin America has benefited from the commodity supercycle. It's true that right now commodity prices are starting to fall, but still there will be plenty of opportunity to export a variety of commodities all over the world. And as I pointed out, maybe energy prices will fall, but agricultural commodities are going to be in rising demand from Asia and all over the world where people need to be fed more. And Argentina, Brazil, other parts of Latin America can be the breadbasket for many other parts of the world. 3, there is a process of economic integration in Latin America. You have more trade within Latin America. There is more foreign direct investment. This is potentially a huge market. And in some sense, one of the constraints to growth has been not enough trade and investment across. Some countries in Latin America have a huge abundance of energy. Argentina, if you exploit your shale reserves. Bolivia with gas, while there are other countries like Chile, Peru, and so on, they don't have enough energy. Now, sometimes political disputes, historical disputes have prevented to create an energy market for all of Latin America. But everybody's going to be benefiting, those who produce and those who are going to be importing. So you have to sit together and try to find the solution that leads to that integration that makes you all better off. You have a huge amount of not just natural resources, but you also have a now high level and rising of human capital. Countries have made significant investment into education, and more so in Argentina, in Chile, in Brazil. And once you have the right human capital, that can be a source of growth. There are plenty of businesses that can be contributing to economic growth and job creation. And you have also governments that are now sound and balanced. Some countries prefer center-left government. Some other countries are centrist or center-right. But extreme governments on one side or another are becoming really the exception. And there are governments that, whether they're center-right or center-left, realize that you have to invest in their people, that you have to have inclusive growth. Even those that are not leftist government in the region, they realize the importance of social and inclusive economic growth. And that's a source of also of stability and avoiding excessive policies of one side or the other one. So I think there is plenty of opportunity for Latin America. Of course, some of those global headwinds are going to be hurting in the short-term economic growth in Latin America, but there is no reason why your country and other countries in the region cannot be successful and very successful over time. You need the right policies, the right institutions, and the right types of investment, and you can do it.
Otra pregunta para el doctor Roubini. Contiene una proposición y una pregunta. La proposición es que muchos países o mercados emergentes obtienen su competitividad a partir de salarios bajos y escaso o nulo cuidado del medio ambiente. La pregunta es, en ese contexto de muchos países o mercados emergentes, ¿cómo puede la responsabilidad social ser reforzada tanto en esos países como de modo global?
Well, I would say that if you damage your environment, you're going to eventually damage your own economic growth, let alone the fact that that pollution affects other countries next to you and globally. So take China. For a long time, they did not care about the quality of growth, and they were growing 10, 11%. But one of the reasons why growth is slowing down now to 7%, and I feel it's going to slow down in the next 2 years towards 5% or less, is that you have caused so much environmental damage that in order to stress the quality of growth rather than the quantity of growth, then you'll have to grow much more slowly than before. And as I pointed out, the medical cost, the social cost, the environmental cost of now cleaning up air, water, land, the food chains, and so on, are going to be huge. So if you don't care about your environment in the short run, you're going to cause so much damage, they're going to be paying for it over time. So there is no free lunch. And therefore, becoming competitive by destroying your own environment is not going to be a viable and sustainable source of growth in the long run. Secondly, you need to compete in the world. But if you have a very low wages in order to be competitive in the world, there is not going to be enough domestic demand. You might grow through net exports, but you're not going to have enough domestic demand. And when there is a shock in the world, your exports might slow down. So, of course, if you increase wages much in excess of productivity, eventually the rise of those unit labor costs may cause a slowdown of growth, less competitiveness, and may lead even to inflation. And in my view, the solution to this dilemma is the following one. You can have strong growth of wages if you have a strong growth of productivity. And to have a strong growth of productivity, you need to have strong economic growth, and you have to invest into the things that increase productivity. In most emerging markets, that means investing in education, investing in skills, investing in public infrastructure, and a variety of public investments, investing into your digital infrastructure, investing into healthcare, and investing into providing the kind of incentive that make the private sector dynamic and producing jobs and creating jobs over time. So sound economic policies can increase productivity. The rise of productivity is going to lead to a rise of wages. So there is no dilemma, because if you're more productive and you have higher wages, you're also more competitive domestically and you're competitive in the world market. So you have to invest into your people so that you have good jobs, good wages, high productivity, and high competitiveness. If you do the right policies, this cannot be incompatible with each other. They're actually consistent with each other.
Bueno, llegan más preguntas para el doctor Roubini. ¿Usted cree que la creación del banco del grupo BRICS, Brasil, Rusia, India, China, Sudáfrica, cree que la creación del banco de los BRICS fue un hecho importante para estos países y para las economías emergentes? Y si además cree que fue un mensaje para el Fondo Monetario Internacional.
I think it's an important development because emerging markets, including the BRICS, have felt that they are underrepresented in the international economic and financial institutions. It's not just in the IMF, but also in the World Bank. Their shares, their quotas, and their chairs have been less than their economic and financial role, and therefore alternatives have been found. Since some emerging markets are having high savings, like China, that mobilization of the savings for productive investments around the world can occur. And one of the main developments of the global economy is that most of trade and investment is not any longer north to south, south to north, foreign direct investment and trade, but with the growth of emerging markets, there is a lot more trade among them. There is more foreign direct investment among them, south to south trade and foreign direct investment. And therefore, you have to find also ways to channel properly private and public capital from one emerging market to the other one. So any kind of financial institution that is helpful to do that is going to be benefiting for making the kind of especially long-term investments in infrastructures that often the private sector and the private financial system cannot make, because for them taking risk of 10, 20, 30 years is not something they want to take. So I'm all in favor of those types of institutions. I would say necessarily you don't have to compete. I think the World Bank can do a lot of good financing for development. The BRICS Bank can do it. The Inter-American Development Bank can do it. Local institutions in Latin America can do it, and there will be private institutions and public institutions can do it. There's been all this development of microcredit, of course, throughout the world. So there are many different solutions how to allocate savings to socially valuable investments all over the world in emerging markets. In that context, the BRICS Bank is one of those contributions.
Bueno, fue la última pregunta, así que agradecemos nuevamente tanto la conferencia magistral como las respuestas del doctor Nouriel Roubini. Le brindamos el aplauso, por supuesto.